This is TalkTV.
Hi, and a very good afternoon to you. This is Petrie here with you through until 7 o'clock this evening and all this week at 4 till 7. And we've been talking about the junior doctors' strike, and I just wonder if you've been thinking about the NHS in the way that I've been thinking about it over the last few years, and that is, it seems almost deliberate that the NHS is being possibly run down the way it is. I just wonder if you think that too, or you just think it's just circumstance. Look, we had the COVID. We're in economic, dull zone. We're not making enough money. We can't give the NHS enough money. There's not enough staff. All of those things. And Brexit has had an impact on the staffing, by the way. There's tens of thousands of jobs going begging in the NHS at the moment and in the care sector generally that we just can't fill with our own people. So I wonder what you think about the NHS. Are you losing faith with it? Have you decided to potentially go down the private route? Look, Terence was just saying he's been bombarded with letters suggesting private healthcare and, jump the queue and do this and do that. I wonder if you've been tempted to do the same thing. Give me a call, 0344 499 1000. Let's talk. But first, let's talk about show business and what's been going on. Joining me now is Josh Rom, entertainment journalist at The Sun. Good afternoon to you, Josh.
Good afternoon to you, Petrie. It's great to be here.
It's good to see you. Listen,
it's great to see you.
Right, there's been a bit of a row kicked off by this morning, and our own Vanessa, who took very lightly to something that actually is a big bugbear of mine, and that is people singing along during a musical performance that isn't warranted, that a sing-along hasn't been requested.
Yes.
By the stage.
Yeah, so this happened in Manchester when a woman started belting out the hit "I Will Always Love You" at the top of her lungs. Obviously, this was distracting. On This Morning, they took a more lighter approach to the topic, because when you read this story at first, as was reported in the newspapers, you would think this is slightly ridiculous here. A woman ejected just for singing a popular song in a musical. What's happened? But the absolute barrage of tweets, it's been the vitriolic tone that has been aimed at Alison, Dermot and Vanessa has been absolutely unreal. Alison and Dermot both released statements talking about the row on the programme and kind of addressing it and apologising for their comments, even though these were honestly held opinions. And listen, when I watched the programme back, I thought to myself, okay, yes, I can see how some people might be offended. Artistic performers, ticket prices are at an all-time high. We're going through a cost of living crisis. You go to a theatre to watch a show, not necessarily sing along with the show. But of course, there's often nuances. During curtain calls, they'll encourage people to sing the finale of the show. There's a wider conversation to be had about declining audience etiquette here. But what we have seen on Twitter recently, aimed particularly at Alison, Dermot and Vanessa, is cancel culture at work. We've seen huge artists like Zizi Strallen, Carrie Hope Fletcher, even Dame Arlene Phillips criticise these presenters, but just because they've held light-hearted, honestly held opinions which weren't even meant to harm.
No, I understand that they weren't meant to harm, but if you have paid look, a friend of mine went to see the new Oklahoma, which sounds interesting, on Thursday last week. £300 that ticket cost him, and he said, I'm paying £300 to hear professionals sing. I don't want Nora sat next to me singing along to the Surrey with the Fringe on top. And but I do get that, Josh. And if you pay a lot of money, and audience etiquette has been getting worse and worse and worse. People on their phones having to be told to not open their phone. I mean, they're not children, right? You're a fully grown adult. Don't sing along until you're asked to sing along. It's not brain surgery. It's not difficult. And I would have been furious if I was sat next to somebody. In fact, I would just tell them to shut up. If I paid a lot of money for a ticket and they're singing along, go and see, you know, something like, you know, I don't know, the ABBA one. What's that one called?
ABBA Voyage.
Yeah,
absolutely.
go and see that and sing along with that all you want. But don't go to a theatre that people have paid a lot of money to enjoy and start singing the songs. You're not professional.
Well, I do agree with you, and there is a very big difference between theatres and concerts and etiquette between those types of performances as well. But what I think it is you know what? Let's do what we're doing now. Let's have a reasonable discussion about it. Let's have a debate about it. You know, what we've seen, the vile tweets, the absolute vitriolic tone of the tweets that we've been seeing, and the abuse aimed at...
Yeah, that's not acceptable.
I'm not saying necessarily not by the performers themselves. They've just been pointing out the sorts of etiquette, what you should be doing from their point of view, and I will absolutely accept that. But from some of the general public, from what we've seen, we have seen cancel culture at work. We haven't seen nuanced debate. We haven't seen open discussion.
You never do, though, Josh.
Demand for an apology, and that's what I think is wrong with this whole entire debate.
Look, I completely agree with you. I think that the theatrical world was upset because, you know, the three of them appeared to be endorsing singing along. You know, Vanessa saying, well, that's what you go to a musical for, isn't it, to sing along? And so, you know, a lot of people watch Vanessa, they love Vanessa, and they think, well, if she can do that, I can do that. And I guess there is a sense of that, but I agree, nobody deserves to be vilified for it. You know, that was you could see that she was just being light-hearted about it. She meant no harm. You know, all of those things. And the same with Alison and Dermot. But I do appreciate that because I've got a lot of friends who work in theatre. So I do appreciate that they've made their position clear, that they misunderstood it. They didn't realise that it was quite so serious a thing, and they're sorry, and that's fair enough. That hopefully that will just disappear now. I hope.
I hope so too. But it's this public demand for execution.
I know, it's crazy.
Accountability, which I think is absolutely mental.
Oh, it's disgusting, actually. And they're all keyboard warriors, and it's
cancel culture. Yeah, it's cancel culture at work.
Yeah, and it's not on. Let's talk about the Super Mario reviews.
Yes.
Lots of people not liking this, but the box office is telling a different story.
Yes, critics have called it tedious, flat, cash grabs, another attempt at merchandise. You know, the critics have absolutely slammed this movie. It's got, on Rotten Tomatoes, that's, of course, the kind of industry-wide website for film review collation. The critics have given it a score of 56%. It has been absolutely slammed. But the box office for this has been completely different. It has broken records for the most successful global box office opening for an animated film. So this film, it's got a huge cast. It's got Chris Pratt. It's got Anya Taylor-Joy. It's got Seth Rogen. It's got Jack Black. So you can see why it appeals to a wide spectrum of the public. But you know, that for it to break huge records, especially because, you know, pre-pandemic levels of cinema going, you know, not as many people are going to the cinema going. Box office takings are down by about 35%. So this does show two things. It shows that, one, that the critics might be slightly out of touch with the general public. What makes a good film doesn't necessarily make a popular film. But also, number two, it shows that it might go to show that this kind of family film demand for family films in the cinemas might be coming back. The previous record of the film, so just to put this into a little bit of context, the record for this was Frozen 2, which we see as this huge global franchise by Disney, Idina Menzel, Kristen Bell. It's got huge iconic songs that people love to sing in the cinemas, that people love to sing in theatres as well. Onto the previous subject quickly, but you know, there is a kind of differentiation here between what the critics think and what the public thinks, because despite bad reviews, the public have gone, well, hey, we're going to go to the cinema.
Yeah, and look, anything that gets people back into the cinema has got to be a good thing, hasn't it? They were complaining that people weren't going into the cinema and weren't you know, bothering. But if this gets people back into the habit of going to the cinema, it's a good thing. Just very quickly, Ryan Reynolds has bought a £1.5 million pad near Wrexham after a snapping up of, obviously, I think they're playing now, are they?
They are. They're playing against Notts County now. That was the kickoff.
2-2. It's a draw, 2-2, with 13 minutes to go. So there you go.
Well, listen. It's good. That's tight. That's a squeaker. Ryan and his pal Rob McElhenney have spent £10 million on the club, and this, you know, it's going to be good for the local economy, isn't it? It's Ryan Reynolds, a huge Hollywood star, saying, yes, part of my future is in Wales. I see a future at this club here long term. This is a far cry away from his $4.5 million apartment in New York that he shares with the likes of Blake Lively and their kids. But a local source actually told The Sun today that his house is still in the poshest road in the town of Marford. So, you know, Ryan is still going to be living it up in Wales, but this is a great move. And it shows that Ryan, he's not one of those kind of Hollywood out of touch types. He loves this. You can tell he's passionate about the club.
He absolutely loves it.
So much so, he's going to buy a house.
Yeah, and the house is on the verge, on the road verge. It's not gated. It's not, you know, all of that. It looks like a very nice, but it's not a gated house. It's not in a, you know, he's just normal and sensible. Josh, thank you very much indeed. Wrexham, by the way, 3-2 up. God, Ryan Reynolds will be so excited. Right, stay with us. I've got a mystery guest coming up. Well, it's a mystery to me anyway. But stay with us here, taking a quick break.